What's up everybody, this is a 7X Fan Ben, and welcome to another fleet making video. This one is going to be called American Pirates 6. So it might be the last variation, hopefully, at least for now, on the American Pirates idea that I started, I think, back in 2015. So this one is going to be a lot different. Well, maybe not a lot, but it's going to be a bit different than the other ones. So the idea is to combine a basic high peng setup with the Roanoke setup, but I might deviate from that in order to kind of make like an American Pirates UPS variant. So I'm gonna just start with Roanoke and go from there. So I guess the question is, I'm gonna try to figure this out on the fly here. So the question is whether or not to use Captain Jack Sparrow 058 version for UPS on the Roanoke, because she's got pirate crew, can use their abilities on the ship, or put him on the high peng. This is kind of my note that I had. I don't think it's going to work in terms of the points. So Roanoke has, let's see, so her basic setup is 7 plus 4 is 11, so 24. The Roanoke, the default Roanoke setup for these builds is 24 points, and high peng is 13, so it's going to be 37. So we're not really going to have room to add UPS. You can add UPS for 17 or 19, but that's not using high peng. So I think I might go a little different. I think I'm going to do something a little different. We'll see what happens. I don't know how this is going to turn out yet. So I'm going to attempt to make a American Pirates UPS fleet, and we're going to see how it goes. So I got Captain Jack Sparrow. I know I'm going to want Sack, but I already have the captain ability via CJS, so I'm not going to add Captain Blackheart, so we don't double up there, because I got to keep this under 13 points because Roanoke is 13. So we've got Captain Jack Sparrow, we've got Jimmy Legs. That's the basis of what we're going to be doing. We do want the generic crew to be American, so that way if the pirate crew can use their ability is canceled, then we'll still retain the use of our other crew, our generics in this case. So that was 9 plus 3 is 12. I'm going to add an oarsman that may or may not start the game on the ship. It'll probably start the game face down and then only be loaded via the free transfer rules if you get Becalmed played on you on the first turn. Because that would, if your opponent goes first and plays Becalmed on you, you can only move ships that can normally move with no masts, but you can get around that by loading the oarsman via the free transfer rules, because that's not an action, so, or it's a free action, I think. So I think this might work decently well, because the Americans, they don't have a sack crew, especially not like Jimmy Legs, so you kind of need 2 pirate crew there to make that work. I think this could be kind of a fun UPS alternate build. It's like AP's UPS, American Pirates 6 UPS version. So I think I might end up liking this more than I thought I would. And you could even keep it American and well, you could even keep it American and have Rattlesnake at home with Ralph David. I'm kind of just brainstorming. So this is probably not the most optimal version, but it would be kind of fun to make a slightly more thematic UPS fleet that sticks with the American Pirates theme rather than just going with the default Coeur du Lion, Aura, Aristide, because I've done that a lot this year, so, and just in general. So I'm going to potentially try something like this and go with, I don't know how many oarsmen, but she'd probably start the game with 2 oarsmen, because then with Ralph David, that'd be 5 points, the ship's cost. Probably start with 1 on the home island. Already at 37. So the idea here is Rattlesnake would just unload. She would get an explore action to unload rather than redocking, because she only has 1 move segment. So it's hard to, when you only have 1 move segment, it's hard to redock. You can measure from, you are supposed to measure from one side of the hull or another, like port versus starboard side. So you can make it work on 1 segment redocking, but a lot of times doing it 2 turns in a row can be hard, because then when you use the first one to redock, you're at a weird angle where it's hard to measure to redock on the next turn. So you kind of block your own hull angles sometimes. But anyway, so she'll probably just unload. She'll probably just be given an explore action to target the home island to get Ralph David's +2 on the coin. And then probably at Hidden Cove +2, because the other AP's fleets usually use that anyway. So we'll put that. And then I'm just going to make, as a reminder for myself, I'm going to put islands, terrain. Islands, I think, would be 3L. Terrain is an interesting one, because now we have, unlike a lot of UPS fleets, we actually have a SAC big gunship that can do some damage. Not dissimilar to Universal Pirate Swan or the HMS GT UPS fleet, I guess. But so normally I'd probably, it's just fog banks, but in this case, it'd probably go Sargasso Seas. If small ships in enemy fleet, and then probably whirlpools too, because with SAC, it's pretty easy to pop through one, then SAC out the other side for an extra action, which can be pretty nasty if you get in range of an opponent, or just for exploring too. So we've got our explorer, so that's good. So now we're going to be at 39 with Hidden Cove, so that'll get us a good first turn jump. And then yeah, that seems fine. Part of the reason I have the islands 3L apart is because I'm keeping in mind the max move distance of Roanoke in a single turn. So if she sacks with Helmsman, her max move is LSLS, which you may remember from other videos or fleets. High Peng, that's max speed of High Peng in one action rather than one turn, but that's slightly farther than 3L. So if you have the islands any farther than the minimum distance, you start to risk that Roanoke may not be able to get from one island to another in one turn, which we don't really want. We kind of want to be able to, we want to send treasure home consistently and be able to, if the first island, the one that we Hidden Cove to, if it's not very good, we want to be able to move to another one in one turn, or 2 actions in this case. So if you have the islands 4L apart or more, you're going to be stuck at sea, which also makes you more susceptible to getting hit with the Mermaids event, and just generally isn't really what we want when we're trying to send treasure home on the regular. So that's 39. And then the other question is what to do with these last 6 points. The Americans don't have any ships under 5 points, I don't think. So it's hard not to go with like a basic setup with like Banshee's Cry. I might do that. That's actually good for flexibility too. I'm probably going to do that. 6 points left. Yeah, that's perfect for Banshee's Cry. Plus, I suppose we could do, I guess, just 3 oarsmen. Maybe 1 or 2 of them pirate, because I want to have Banshee's Cry as like a potential option to either send out on her own if Roanoke gets into trouble or something, or gets stuck because of the natives UT or something like that. Banshee's Cry could go out and run treasure on her own. So, and then that keeps it American pirates. That's good, rather than doing like Coeur du Lion, having French involved, and try to not have any other factions here. So I really want to do an American or a pirate ship that can load Ralph David via the free transfer rules and have him bounce between ships at the home island. But I don't think for 6 points I can pull that off. I don't think there's any, yeah. Even if we go outside of the Americans and the pirates, I don't know that there's a ship cheap enough. I don't think there's one with that ability. And then if you use it on a crew, you could use Jonah. Okay, so you could use Banshee's Cry, Jonah, and then Anna Maria. But that's already 6. So then, yeah, that doesn't really work too well. You'd probably be just as well off using Banshee's Cry and then Jenny Gallows from Spanish Main, because she gives +2. I think it's kind of hard to, unless both ships at the home island are of the same faction, like we've seen in, I think one of the UPS fleets uses Core and the Lizard. And then you can bounce Aristide between the ships in between the UPS ships exploring actions. So I think I'll probably not try to make that work. Like I said, you could do it with Banshee's Cry and then Jenny Gallows. or Anna Maria, and then she allows Ralph David to use his abilities. But the other problem there is you run out of oarsmen faster. So you could have 4 total if Roanoke leaves hers on the home island. So then Rattlesnake has 2, and then this Banshee's Cry setup has 2 as well. You could have 2 full turns of trading home 2 coins per turn, because you trade home 2 on the first turn. They both get plussed up by +2, and then you do that again on the second turn. I do like that idea a lot. I feel like that's a little bit more unique than just having Banshee's Cry with a bunch of crew, like 3 crew to use. I think it might actually be better to get the bonuses on more coins. You do run out of crew to send out to Roanoke via the CGS ability faster, but I think it could be a little bit more interesting. Let me just see how I want to do this. I'm going to do Banshee's Cry. I'm going to add Jonah, because he's going to need his ability either way if we use him with a +2. Because if we use Jenny Gallows or Ralph David, they're going to, as soon as you load an oarsman to trade for the coin, you're over the 3-point limit of the ship. So we'll need him. And then it's probably better to use Jenny Gallows rather than Anna Maria, because then we don't have to switch the crew between ships, which makes the fleet a little bit more simple, simplifies things a little bit. And yeah, it also helps if you get canceled at your home island, which is not likely, but it's still a possibility. So there's a couple different ways to kind of fill out this fleet, but I'm just gonna do this as the default, and then I could always try a different version as desired. So with Hidden Cove, that'll get us to 45 total. So I'm going to rearrange the oarsmen in a second, but now we're going to have the ability to trade home 2 coins each of the first 2 rounds, and then each and every coin is going to get +2, which is quite good. This kind of reminds me of either EPS 2 or High Point Fort Frenzy 2. So could be pretty effective. I like how it keeps the American Pirates theme too. I think that's good. So yeah, Jonah. So Jonah allows the Banshee's Cry to exceed her point cap, which she'll need because she's actually going to get an American oarsman. So let's delete one of these. Yeah, let's delete one of them, and then delete the one from Roanoke as well. So there's that, and then we're going to add 2 American oarsmen. It's debatable if they should all be American. That's another thing to consider. So basically, Roanoke is going to be using Jimmy Legs to sack the oarsmen that get traded to the island. She's going to load them via the free transfer rules, and then she's going to sack them with Jimmy Legs for an extra action. So she's going to do that on the first turn and the second turn. You won't, because of the island distance, it's probably not going to be able to trade home 2 coins on the second turn, because you're going to have to use both actions to move to a different island. But you might just stay. It depends on how good the first island is. So if you see that you will get enough gold from the first island to win, like 16 or more, then you won't need to go to a different island. So we can calculate how much that's going to be. So if we're sending home, I mean, you're probably going to find UTs. So it might mess with the values, the average values, and how many coins you can send home. So let's say you find 4 coins and you can send them all home. If we're getting +2 on each coin, that's +8 overall. So then the average value of those 4 coins just needs to be 2 or higher. So if you got 4 2s and they all get plussed up, then you'd have 16. So, but it's also reasonably likely you won't find that. I think I'm going to add kind of what's starting to become almost like borderline standard for UPS fleets, where we're going to add treasures that basically allow us to see what's out there. And then it also allows us to eliminate negative UTs, because that's one of the biggest cons of UPS fleets, and one of the biggest drawbacks, or one of the best counters to them, is stacking the field with negative unique treasures, usually a full 5, and then plague and missionary natives, they can really slow down or just completely stop a UPS fleet. So the Codex is another one. And then I'm pretty sure this ship, yeah, she's going to have room for jailhouse dogs, so we're going to add that one as well, because that one can eliminate, that can be used as an interrupt to immediately remove a UT from the game. So, and I'm partly adding that because Roanoke has space for it. You have to load it, and it's loaded face down, so it takes up space. But she will have room for it. We don't get the +1 cargo from CJS because it's not a pirate ship. He links to all pirate ships, but it's not too big of a problem because we only have 4 that take up space. So she'll have 2 open, and the American oarsmen that she loads won't take up space. So that way we've got our UTs in the field. So it's going to result in our other coins being probably, my default is usually 5s, mostly because that's enough to build a fort. So in case you want to build a fort on the first island, I mean, a one could work. It just depends on the rules you're playing with. So what I'm saying is basically the 1 gets plussed up to 3, but if you're not using, I much prefer the exception to the pirate code, where like abilities that modify gold values, you're basically able to use bonus gold to build forts, and it can be stolen or parlayed, things like that. So I much prefer using it that way. I think it's a much more dynamic game and more interesting. But if you're not using that, the disadvantage to going 7-7-1 with the 3 non-UT coins for your 8 for 15 treasure contribution, the disadvantage there is if you get a 1 or a 2, if you're not using that exception, then it's not enough to build a fort, and that might be the only coin worth value you find on the first island. Versus here, if we go with 3 5s, if we find any of those, even without the +2, that 5 is enough to build any of the forts that we can build here, because we're going to add those next. Basically, it's not really a fort-based fleet, but you definitely want to have them on hand, and you want to have them in mind in case you want to use them. So Dead Man's Point would be the default because it's cheap and effective, and then Devil's Maw is pretty good overall, and Thompson's is decent. Not the best. Thompson's could be pretty good here because she might actually get her cannon bonus with Roanoke there if Roanoke stays at that island. So yeah, this looks decent. Kind of want to do a more brainstorming fleet video. So I think it's a solid start on like an American Pirates UPS variant. I think this is actually the first time I've put Captain Jack Sparrow on the Roanoke, which it kind of took a while to get there. But it's a good ship for him. Plenty of cargo. Got the right ability for him. Good point cost too. High Peng, Roanoke, they're both 13. It's a really good cost because it allows you to add like Sack, Helmsman, Explorer, along with CJS. That's 12. And then the 13th point in the point cap can be the oarsman that you'll sack. And then by the time you sack the oarsman, you free up, that point for the next oarsman that gets traded out. So should work pretty decently. I like the idea of getting +2 on all the first 4 coins you send home. I think that could be pretty good. Still a little bit dependent on treasure luck. I think this fleet's probably not going to be quite as good as HMS GT UPS because that has more combat capability. Roanoke's not as fast or as powerful as the Grand Temple, but overall I think this is a pretty fun UPS variant. And like I said earlier, you could do something different with the Banshee's Cry. You could just load her up with 3 oarsmen, or maybe I might do like something different, like maybe 1 American oarsman. That's the first one you would trade out to Roanoke, and then a pirate explorer and pirate oarsman, because then by the time you get around to trading like a 4th or 5th crew via Roanoke, she might be in trouble, or she might not really have many good options to send home for coins, so she might be off just kind of gathering gold normally or fighting the enemy or something, and then at that point Banshee's Cry might be able to use that explorer oarsman combo that are pirate to go run gold on her own. Maybe going back to that first island that might still have gold on it or might have a fort on it or something like that. So, and it's also flexible because that pirate oarsman could still be traded later on to Roanoke. And since pirate crew can use their abilities on this ship, it could still not take up space, you know, stuff like that, and use it to row Roanoke around if needed, if it gets that bad. So overall, kind of happy to see Rattlesnake and Ralph David in a fleet, in a UPS fleet. So I don't think it'll be the most competitive UPS fleet, but I think I will test this. I'm a little bit more excited about this than I thought I would when I started making it. Definitely deviated a lot from the initial idea, but could still do that in the future, but I don't think that would work as well. So overall, pretty happy with the fleet. Feel free to like, comment on it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And beyond that, feel free to check out the affiliate links in the description below where you can find awesome pirate stuff on eBay. It'll help support the channel if you buy from those. And it'll also help out my website, Pirates with Ben. And beyond that, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in more videos.